Welcome. Today, we're going to be discussing the US dollar, Europe, and the Chinese Yuan with Bob Mason of FX Empire. Hello, Mr. Mason, and thank you once again for joining us. Let's start with the top currency, the US dollar. How do you see this playing out over the upcoming week?
It's a busy week ahead for the greenback. On the economic calendar, I think there's two big ones to look out for. That's Wednesday's October inflation numbers and retail sales figures due out on Friday. Annual rate of inflation is due to hold steady at 2.4%. So anything weaker than that, and expect the dollar to ease. You know, on the retail sales side, after a fall in retail sales back in September, retail sales are expected to rebound. That would be dollar positive and would likely overshadow any weaker inflation figures. So a jump in retail sales would definitely be dollar positive. Outside of the numbers, you know, obviously geopolitics remains a key driver. Key will be progress on US-China trade talks. The markets will want to hear on when this phase one of the agreement will be signed and where, you know, obviously tariffs will be coming off, not all of them, but some, and that's got to be a boost for the global financial markets and the dollar in particular. So all in all, if the stars are aligned, retail sales get a jump and the US and China make further progress, then the greenback should find further support.
We all agree that full attention should be paid to the trade talks right now. But what about Europe? And are there any signs of a recession coming up?
Looking at the numbers over the last few weeks, economic data out of the Eurozone suggests that the Eurozone should avoid a recession. GDP numbers out of Germany next week are expected to point to a further contraction. That's obviously pinning back the Eurozone growth, but there's support from elsewhere, you know, particularly the likes of France. There's one curveball, however. You know, while the Eurozone is expected to avoid that recession, the US is making progress on trade talks with China, and there's been plenty of talk of slapping tariffs on the EU, with Germany in focus. So any suggestions of tariffs on the EU, you know, that could really hit consumer confidence, and that would ultimately impact on consumer spending. That's been the key support to the Eurozone economy, you know, since the start of the trade war with the US and China. So at the moment, yes, Eurozone should avoid a recession, but you know, if a trade war kicks off between the US and the EU, you know, then, you know, that's really going to change the situation for the EU. You know, I don't think they'll be able to stick out a lengthy trade war in the same way that China has managed to do. And
not forgetting about China, the question arises, is there anything besides trade that is affecting the Chinese yuan?
The Chinese yuan's been on the rise of late. It's not really surprising considering the progress being made on trade talks. You know, with a phase one agreement in sight, the last thing China really wants to do is start, you know, pinning back the yuan to, you know, levels seen back in September when we were at 7.17. You know, we're at sub 7 now. That's positive from a US administration perspective. That's really, you know, China saying we're not manipulating the currency, you know, to offset the impact of tariffs. You know, on the economic front, you know, we saw growth slow down in the third quarter, but it wasn't a complete disaster. Trade data out of China this morning was, you know, positive. The surplus widened further. Exports and imports fell less than had been expected. Private sector manufacturing, you know, and service sector activity have managed to hold on, with manufacturing sector growth returning, you know, in October, according to the Kaisen numbers. So the combination of progress on trade talks and expectations of tariffs coming off, and, you know, relatively positive, or at least better than expected economic data out of China, you know, have all pointed towards a slight pickup in the yuan. And, you know, we're not expecting Beijing to be pushing the PBOC to pin the yuan back anytime soon. You know, ruffling Trump's feathers right now could really reverse the progress made on trade talks.
So thank you once again for joining us, Mr. Mason, and looking at the week ahead. We hope to see you again next time. Thank you for joining us.